Hi, this is my latest video related to small and nano cap stocks listed on Canadian exchanges. Trying some new programs. I'm trying PowerPoint and yeah, just trying to get the hang of all these new things. So this again, an overview of IR strategies that Canadian small and nano cap companies use. Again, some of these all IR firms will do, some of them only some of those tasks or activities they'll do, but hopefully it's to give an idea on certain things that are available out there for public companies. So the first component when you're public is obviously the dissemination of news releases. Companies these days, there is a cost associated with them. Uh, Obviously, if you go with a Cision, the cost can get quite high when you're disseminating news. Certainly, if you're including links, images, the cost can go up. But the bottom line is that companies are required to provide timely updates, fair, plain, and true disclosure. So if you have a material change that comes out, say it's an acquisition, a financing, that should be disclosed as soon as possible. I have been in situations where it needs board approval or news releases are sent over to CIRO, which is formerly IROC or market surveillance. They may review and have comments to it. It's not uncommon as well that companies may send their press releases to the Canadian Securities Exchange or the TSX Venture Exchange. Again, they may have comments related to it. Some of the groups out there that provide news dissemination, again, they are approved by the TSX Venture and the Canadian Securities Exchange. The is unlimited words and pages, not only per press release, but they also have an annual package. I've used 3 out of these 4, Cision, the Newswire, and then of course Notify, which is the old, when I started out, it was CCN Matthews, then it became MarketWired, or Globe Investor. It's changed its name a number of times. I'm not too sure why, but they get, the bottom line is you want as much distribution as possible with your press releases so that as many people as possible can see it. Another thing that IR firms will do for companies is engage in road shows, either in person or virtual presentations. One of the things that's changed over the last little while is it used to be, how would people get ideas on new companies and such? And, a broker would send an email out or make a phone call to their client saying, hey, I just saw a presentation from a company. But with the advent of discount trading accounts, where direct investing, where you don't necessarily have a full service broker, it's getting harder and harder to reach potential investors. Certainly digital advertising, which I'll talk about in here, it does help. Email lists do help. Back in the day, it used to be fax blasts. I also used a service through some guys out of Vancouver where you would have financial post inserts. That worked fantastic. I used to get anywhere from 100 to 300 leads from people that would have this little insert that they could check off which companies they were interested in. They would send them in the mail, postage was paid. It was really good. So nowadays, though, there's a lot of companies, though you're trying to reach different brokers as well. Some of them prefer to support their own deals or their own firm deals. So it's getting harder and harder, certainly, to get in front of brokers, because again, brokers still do have quite a few clients, and again, instead, the touch point to one broker could open up the possibility to 100, 200 clients, maybe even more, that they obviously trust that broker's opinion of stocks and again may have interest in it. And it's different firms, they all have the same house numbers. I'm concentrating here on the TSX Venture and the CSE. So, for example, BMO would be House 9 or Acumen is House 200. They all are the same house numbers on the trading platforms. And then there's a list. You can access it on the CSE website or the TSX website. Digital marketing. This is something that certainly when COVID took place, it just exploded. I was doing a bit of it before based upon specific news releases. I probably ran about 200 campaigns that were tied directly to a press release. But there's so many different groups offering it. I'm fortunate that I work in the offices of WTR Media, which has a 39-year history. Started out in traditional advertising, but moved into digital about 18 years ago. And not only do they have the traditional ones in Google, there's native ads and Yahoo, but they have a lot of other solutions, specialty solutions for companies that are looking to use digital advertising. We'll just touch on a couple of them here. So obviously people have talked about search engine optimization. Basically it's unpaid search, but getting your website so when the spider goes out, whatever search engine it is, that it can find your website. Search engine marketing, you're effectively paying for a higher ranking or maybe even paying for ads. That definitely helps when you're starting out a digital campaign because you start building the pool. If people are interested or clicking on it, it helps in trying to find like-minded people, which you can use for display ads, which again are different sorts of graphic advertising of leaderboard, skyscraper, big box, double big box, a number of different sizes, and native ads, which almost look like a news story where you'll have one story say on Apple, another story on Google, and the next one is some relatively small market cap company. And generally it'll say in the corner, it'll say sponsored ad or ad. There's some sort of notification that it is an ad. Digital marketing works in this day and age, especially with so many people that are that are doing their own investing. It also works for attracting different brokers and members in the investment community. I'm certainly finding on X, there's a lot more people, investment professionals that they do work for, some of them work for firms, but even people that, really have their own firms are able to provide their insights without any of the sort of restrictions that a brokerage firm have on like a bank or something that may not want you to be so much in the public eye. Again, I'm assuming on this, but I would expect to see more. There will be more people definitely online providing various insights. The bottom line is they're trying to attract clients and get information out about different companies that they like. But digital advertising is here to stay. And in my opinion, it's the most cost-effective way to try and find new investors or introduce it. I've found, though, one thing with digital advertising, there are some firms that, you'll have the company, then you'll have the IR group, and then that IR group kind of outsources it to a third party. But that third party, they're not, you've probably seen a lot of press releases that have came up for companies that have to clarify all their marketing relationships. And, there'll be a comment, something in the press release about, these statements about this resource are not correct and the company did not approve this messaging. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think responsible digital marketing, again, driving to the company website, give the people what they want. If it's a news release, a highlight from a news release, trying to sell a product, talking about a specific project that they have, send them to it. I'm not a fan of sending to the third-party landing pages because if you send it to the third-party landing page, the people that own that third-party landing page effectively have a pixel on it, which allows them to track it and they can use it for future marketing campaigns. But everybody's different. Trade shows. I used to go to a lot of the Cambridge shows in Vancouver and Toronto and such. In fact, they used to have them in Calgary here as well. They're good. I've learned some things is that when you're going out to these trade shows, it's better to try and plan in advance or reach out and contact people that you can meet if you know they're going to be at the show. Again, and if there's a collection, certainly at PDAC, I mean, you can have 10, 20 meetings, no problem, over a couple days, just people there taking a break from wandering around the show or going and checking out the booths. So again, PDAC is certainly, the flagship one in Canada for mining, which is obviously why we should be really pushing for more mining in Canada to capitalize on US manufacturing and different infrastructure projects. I did I did a call recently. Again, there's so many different shows, it's hard to keep track of them all. If you do a search, a Google search or something, or even an AI search, you there's sponsored ads. It won't necessarily be what you want, but I came across an IR professional in Calgary, Daniela Trinka, who has Splash IR, which does talk about upcoming investor conferences. I haven't signed up to use it, but I did a walkthrough with it, and it makes sense. Certainly, you could plan your schedule around, you're going to go on the road twice a year. Where are the conferences? Where are the best conferences? I mean, of course, everybody's going to tell you they have the best conference, but it's some are more suited for certain sectors. I mean, some are more, if there may be specific investors in a certain city that you want to meet with, but again, they can get expensive because not only are you flying there, hotel, cost of the conference, print materials and such, it can get pretty pricey. So again, best to try and maximize your value from there by setting up meetings and such. Market making. Used to do market making back in the early 2000s. Effectively, you're trying to create an orderly market. Um, I'm less a fan of market making now. It can get a little expensive. However, if you have a very illiquid stock, meaning that the difference or the separation between the bid and ask is quite wide. So for example, if it's bid 10 cents and offered at $1, your stock is, and your last trade price is 50 cents. I mean, this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's unlikely that stock is going to trade. Nobody's going to pay double for it or sell it at an 80% discount. So a market maker, instead of it being 10 to $1, they may tighten that spread up to 40 cents on the bid and 60 cents on the offer. I've seen ranges of market making anywhere from $5 to $7,500. Years ago, it used to be the market making where you would deposit shares from either an insider or somebody close to an insider. They would deposit into account with cash, and they would facilitate that bid ask, and there would be trades that would go through. But the interesting thing about a lot of these arrangements, at the end of the term, there was no guarantee of any shares and no guarantee of any cash. Is it valuable? Sure, I guess for some companies, but I've found that if you have a champion broker, champion investor who has a core position, they're watching the market. Maybe they always had a bit of an offer in, and they're not. They don't have confidential information, so they're not constrained from activities like some insiders can be. In addition to that, with a market maker, it's good if somebody needs to sell or block or something. They may get contacted and say, hey, somebody needs to sell a block of 500,000 shares. They may contact the market maker. The market maker can contact the company. So I guess, yeah, there is some value in having that, just somebody watching the market all day. Corporate materials, again, IR, you're involved in helping create current or up-to-date fact sheets, presentations, different branding materials. Certainly, I think some people, investors' pet peeve is when you go to a company website and their PowerPoint is 2 years outdated. They don't have the latest news release on their website. Potentially, in some cases, the directors are wrong. I mean, these are things that IR can make sure that they're all up to date and accurate, because definitely when an investor comes to your website, they want to get as much information as possible, and obviously want to get that accurate information. Broker outreach. So this is a lot of IR, again, back to before, but even though it kind of a little bit crosses over on digital advertising, but it's the phone calls, the emails to various brokers that may be interested in a specific company. I've found the longer you've known a broker, the higher likelihood that they're going to look at a story. It also depends on if the sector, if there's a lot of movement in it, if there's been a lot of money raised in it, the sentiment of the market as a whole. I've generally used, instead of sending over the entire presentation, you can send over a one pager because again, time is valuable. If you can get your pitch down to 60 seconds, send them over a one pager, get a yes or no if they're interested in a conference call or a virtual or a Zoom meeting or even a face-to-face meeting with the broker. The bottom line is definitely not everybody's going to want to see the company, excuse me. But it's just a matter of reaching out to these people and getting as much information out as possible. Social media. So this is one thing after I worked at InVentures earlier this year, and Gary Vaynerchuk was one of the speakers and about organic content. It's one of the reasons why I'm trying to do some more organic content. First on identifying some companies and just getting comfortable with doing it. I will admit sometimes it feels like these videos are kind of boring, but it's a matter of getting comfortable and figuring out what works for different people. But again, LinkedIn, X, YouTube, those are three of the main ones that I think people can use. Certainly there's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. There's so many different platforms. The thing with social media is whoever is doing the posts on it should understand that there are regulatory constraints. You can't come out on social media and say our company is going to be bought out in 3 months or something, or make outrageous promotional statements. It's getting better, but I was looking on Reddit yesterday, and there definitely are some over the top comments. I mean, I don't know for sure if these are paid for posts, i.e. the company is paid an IR firm or maybe indirectly through an IR firm or consultant. But some of these posts are crazy. But the other thing I noticed is a lot of the people that were making some of these over the top promotional statements have actually had their accounts suspended on Reddit, which I found was interesting. And we want to kind of avoid that. We want to be informative, maybe entertain as well, and just encourage people to just check out a company website. This is another thing in IR, certainly that I try and help out. Corporate filings. CDR filing is another component. Press releases, another component. Sorry, press releases, financial statements, material change reports. I am a CDR filer. Lots of times company will use a third-party CDR filer, such as myself, or they'll actually use the lawyers. It can get expensive if you're doing a lot of filings. I also find that some of the forms, certainly on TSX Venture, there are some fees associated with filing some forms there. CSE, not so much. But the exchange is there to help you. Can lawyers do it? Of course they can. But smaller companies, limited funds. I mean, I obviously they should have good legal counsel. But to understand to do these filings, I mean, if they have the time, or maybe somebody internally can do it, or hell, maybe even an IR person can do it. If you're stuck on these filings, the exchange can help you. I mean, certainly sometimes they may tell you, we'll contact your lawyer. But I think that there's an opportunity for companies. I think it helped them understand the policies and procedures at the exchange, and then know more about their company instead of focusing maybe on just the marketing or trying to sell something. Business development. This is another thing that I found is a component of IR that isn't really done. I've tried to do it more and more, whereby you find other companies out there, get it, not like, instead of having their salesperson, which may be overloaded with sales, but to reach out with people that you think there may be an opportunity, try and arrange for a virtual meeting with them, but get them on the mailing list for the company, for company disclosure. If they know that if they're in the same sort of sector as you, and maybe there potentially are some opportunities but don't know, there could be an opportunity. An example, I saw that I'm working with hybrid power solutions in an IR capacity, but was reaching out to people with respect to Passive House Canada and Passive House Alberta, and called the guy up, arranged for a Zoom call. And next thing you know, he's like, we're building some townhouses out here, and potentially this battery solution could work. They want to do it, with a strong building envelope and solar panels. And again, having a power supply or a battery there that can store the extra power from solar if it doesn't go back on the grid, because again, there are sometimes caps which you can put back onto the grid. But even if there's an outage and you have that battery, you're not subject to if the grid goes down. So I believe that will increase, again, just based upon that battery and that passive home aspect. But the main thing is that business development. Find things that are synergistic, mutually beneficial things. I mean, IR can certainly help on that, and at least facilitate an introduction for the two companies. This again, synergies with other companies, kind of consistent with what I was saying before. So again, you get people on your mailing list, they know who you are. You want to try and increase that distribution of people that know about your company. You never know if they become a shareholder. You never know if they're going to talk to their broker about it, if they have a broker. And again, you never know where there's a business development opportunity, or again, a mutually beneficial sort of relationship. So again, none of this is meant to be investment advice, for information purposes only. If you suggest contacting an investment advisor, and do your own research, because there's lots of information out there. So yeah, thanks. So I look forward to doing more videos. Thank you.